Jack. I don't think we had anything to start with, did we?
Yep.
Now I'm just going to hit that little button there because we've got way too many of you, Jake. Way too many.
Yep. Look, one is way too many. Frankly.
One is way too many. That's right. If I wasn't relying on you for income, you have a very
the optimum number is 0.
All right. Well, I'm ready to rock and roll. Are you also?
I'm ready. I am also ready to rock and roll. I'm in the zone. Can you not tell, Greg? I'm in the zone.
I can tell you're in the zone. Okay, I'm going to get rid of a few of those little things, and there we go.
Iced coffee, Greg.
It is. It looks delicious, Jake. Let me tell you, it looks delicious. I only have water.
It's not. It's not delicious. I wouldn't say it's delicious. I'd say it's an iced coffee, delivered black.
Why are you drinking it?
It's purely functional, Greg. No sense of smell, thus very limited sense of taste. It's purely functional.
So it's just for like aesthetics. It's just for looks. You're just like,
no,
this is what a normal person would do on a Monday afternoon. Is they would have an iced coffee.
It's a functional thing.
Now Rebecca Anderson has joined the chat very quickly. She's right onto
Rebecca,
it.
Welcome.
It's almost like she's on holidays or something. And she said, rock and roll away, Greg.
Rock and roll.
Yeah. We are rocking and rolling. I'm going to get into it because we've got a lot to talk about, Jake. So I'm going
to let's kick this pig.
Let's munch this.
Is there a vegan version for that?
Yep. Kick the lettuce.
Yeah.
Let's kick the lentils.
Let's kick the lentils.
Let's kick the I can't believe it's not a pig.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's great.
Hello, and welcome to The Pouch, the podcast equivalent of a popper that accidentally makes too much noise when you burst it, that takes a not-so-serious look at the week in Australian news and politics. I'm Greg, OMG, why can't Australia Post deliver on Saturdays all the time? Savage.
And I'm Jake, OMG, I got a package in the mail on Saturday, Far Warden. Oh, I did actually get a package in the mail.
It's great, it's a good feeling, isn't it? Yeah.
Gotta love it.
It's amazing.
On today's episode, actually, I had a conversation with the mailman. He said, this year it's just not stopped. I've not had a freaking day off. And I said, well, tomorrow's Sunday. You get a day off. Yeah, but everyone... Anyway, all right. I've derailed this, Greg.
Well, why didn't he he should have taken a day off. It's not healthy.
Exactly. On today's episode, we talk e-cigs, bubbles, human rights, and frankly, so very much more.
And, Jake, while we're as snug as a bug in this proverbial rug, I want to know why we just don't bundle all the necessary natural disaster apps into one giant app and call it Survivor Australia.
Greg, I have decided not to do a spoiler alert joke for this because I just want to acknowledge the genius of what you proposed there. I think that's both. It is both logistically an intelligent way to group all of the apps together, and I can't believe that hasn't been done, and comedically. Just such a great line.
It is a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's one of those ones that came to me at like 3 a.m. So I quickly jumped on the Google Drive that we use and changed it up. Now I have evolved it though, Jake. I don't think an app would do it justice anymore. I think an entire phone. I think just
the Survivor phone.
Just an Australian phone.
The Survive phone.
Because just like there's been, you can't keep up at the moment. There's flood warnings. There's all sorts of they've got weird pictures on the weather map about all sorts of different warnings. Floods, fires.
New colour for fires.
Yeah, new colour for fire. Yeah, that's all changed, hasn't it? The new fires threw everyone off. They had no idea what was going on. They've got rid of the blue down here in New South Wales. We used to have a blue. We used to have an advice. We used to have an advice, a blue one, but now it's yellow. And so yellow instinctively freaks New South Welshmen out.
Yeah, I've always said that. Interesting, of course, that the colour of your New South Welshman number plates on your cars is yellow.
Yeah, it's like a...
Yellow.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's a long, boring story. I'm more than happy to go into details about it, having moved from Queensland to New South Wales. I understand the intricacies, Jake, the nuances that are involved with the New South Wales plate.
You still have to get a yearly car inspection of your car?
Yeah, which I quite like. Having 3 children and driving around on the roads, I like knowing that every car... Because they've had that in New Zealand forever. And so I've always liked the fact that you have... You know that the cars are being checked. It's quite smart.
I feel, Greg, that this is a conversation that only a Queenslander and a former Queenslander, now New South Welshman, could have.
Probably.
Because this probably, like the South Australians are going, we fly everywhere. And the Western Australians, they're all like...
We're our own country. We don't give a shit what you're doing.
Exactly. We can't even understand your language.
We got a totally different accent.
So, anyway.
I understand your point. I was going to make a joke about the license plates being yellow as like a spider's back is yellow to say stay away, but I think we've moved on from that.
Well, I had a conversation with my parents.
What the hell are you talking to all these people for?
I
haven't spoken to anyone for weeks.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, no, my parents have left to Western Australia to be with my other brother, one of my other brothers who lives over in Western Australia. As of this morning, I took him to the airport, and yesterday we had sort of early Christmas with a large part of my family and a few other friends. And I had this conversation with a gentleman across the table from me, saying that.
Did you know this person?
I did know this person.
Okay, does he have a name?
Name them, and not for any nefarious reason, but he was saying, yeah, look, the border between New South Wales and Queensland is back up because of the number of cases in the Insular Peninsula. The northern beaches of Sydney, and so yes, Queensland has put their hard borders back up, and he said, yeah, look, there seems to be a little bit of profiling going on. That there must be some sort of intelligent computer system that's looking at the number plates, and it's looking at the drivers and being able to determine who is from New South Wales and who is from Queensland, because the Queenslanders don't seem to be getting stopped, the New South Welshmen seem to be getting stopped. And it dawned on me very quickly that there's a different colour between the New South Wales and Queensland.
Well, you can
plates.
opt to get a narrower white and black license plate. So if you don't pay the extra money, you just get the yellow one. That's the default is the yellow one.
Yeah.
If you want to look a little European, you just pay a little extra, and you get the option to have a narrower white and black one.
Look,
so both our cars have the white and black one.
I love that. I love that so much.
Because the yellow is dreadful.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, look, maybe they're using the same technology that they use to check my parking when I leave Westfield or whatever.
Yes, they're checking your number. Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, possibly. I think it's actually just everyone gets checked.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. They might also be looking for a particular type of person as well,
Yeah,
But anyway.
Is there dreadies?
Jake, I just want to explain my background to anyone who is watching. Usually I have a varied background,
Maltese,
but today
New Zealand.
Exactly. Quarter Maltese and
That was a good guess there.
But there's probably koala in there or something. I don't know. It's a bit of a mush. I am I'm in my living room. I don't usually broadcast from my living room, but I am in my living room. My wife is very sick, so technically I'm parenting as well.
Yeah.
I'm technically parenting.
Yeah.
So she's downstairs near where I would usually record in the studio, and the children are somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is
technically
good.
parenting.
Yeah, technically parenting. I've got one of those little tile trackers on them.
Oh, okay. So literally, technically.
So
parenting.
if they, it just
with technology.
Yeah, it alarms. It sends me an alarm if they leave the house. That's about as good. So if you see a small hand like suddenly appear beside me or wanting a biscuit or something, it's probably why. And we're both on holidays.
Have a biscuit.
We're both on holidays, which is why I have children here as well. And we're both on holidays. I'm in my relaxed. This is my mowing gear. I literally finished mowing the yard before we're doing this podcast.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Now
crazy.
I need to fact check this, Greg,
Yeah.
because you have a clean shirt on.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's sort of like maybe it's just not picking up the finer grains of seed of sand. And also, usually when I mow, Jake, it doesn't end up here.
Yeah, okay.
The fun is all down below the chest.
So
I'm going to be growing. I'm pretty sure weeds will be growing in my carpet based on what I'm wearing at the moment. Yeah.
Both my wife and I were exclaiming mere moments ago, Greg, mere moments before we commenced podcasting, that I mowed on, and actually she mowed as well on Saturday, and it's now being Monday. We've looked at the grass and determined we actually need to mow again.
You guys love your mowing, don't you?
We live on acreage, and and it has rained a prolific amount in the last. Look, some people might say it's unprecedented.
It is.
I don't think I want to start off 2021 by making claims of unprecedented nature.
Well, you've still got 9 days, Jake. Let's not get too crazy. Let's not get too crazy. I think, look, so much better. Today actually marks the peak of the Gospers Mountain Fire, which is Australia's biggest fire. It started, if I've got my dates correct, it started somewhere in October, maybe late October, through a lightning strike, and it ended up being Australia's biggest fire from a single ignition point.
Right.
And it reached its peak this time last year on December 21st. So that's a this. I mean, look, I'm going to show you. I'm going to take off my webcam here. I'm going to show you what I can see, because I can see. This is what we can see. This is the Blue Mountains at the moment, and it's just raining. Like, it's just pure rain.
It's just
this time last year, I'm going to send everyone seasick if I keep doing that. I don't. It was crazy because, I mean, this time last year was just smoke, right? It was just smoke and red and fear and sirens. Whereas this year it's just like, oh yeah, it's raining, and it's nice to not have to freak out about that. Some people do have to freak out about that. There are flood warnings and things. But I don't.
Not today.
Not today, rain. Not today.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it is. It's a year on from massive bushfires. I was listening to report this morning on ABC AM, and yeah, they were walking through the various things that happened a year ago today, and it's. We've come a long way. We've seen a lot. We've done a lot. Well, we've done very little, but we've seen a lot.
I know, and I think the worst part at the moment is hearing these stories. You know, people who are still waiting on houses to be built. They've been living out of caravans and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's really heartbreaking.
It
Shouldn't be taking that long. But you know, they've got to do it properly. I think if I was listening to the same AM episode that you were, then they were talking about the fact that people have to wait because of all the new building codes and things like that they have to live up to. So all of the the shutters have to have shutters. They have to have all sorts of. They have to be bush cleared, all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Many of them now live in bushfire zones.
Yeah.
Or the bushfire zoning has changed. So yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible.
It is good. It is good. We're moving the way of over regulation with big government.
Yeah.
And look, it's just great for me.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah. We do love a big government. Now, speaking of big government, Jake, let's get into the nitty gritty, shall we? I've given you. I've got, what have I got? 12 and a half minutes to cut out of the podcast already. So that's great. But it's nice to catch up with you, man. It's nice to catch up with you. Look, we had our last week of school. I got really, really sick. Our kids got really, really sick, so our whole house has just been sick for the past week and a half. So it's been pretty full on. So it's nice to sit down with you, nice to catch up with you. As part of our warm up, Jake, I put in this story. We're constantly hearing about the fact that the trust in government is at an all-time low. However, Australia's trust in governments at the moment is super mega high. Tell us the deets.
Yes, I'll tell you some of the deets.
Tell me, give me the deets.
So in some respects, you're absolutely correct. I suppose the important one to point out is that the corruption index, the perception of corruption in government, i.e., I'm electing these guys to do the things that they said that they were going to do, but I don't actually trust them to do what they say they're going to do. That's still at an all-time low, but nonetheless, the initial findings from a new report called the Scanlon Foundation's Mapping Social Cohesion Report.
Classic.
And they show 85% support for the federal government's response to the pandemic. And of course, into the state governments, their backing for some state governments exceeds 90%, Greg.
That's crazy.
90%.
That's crazy good.
It's crazy.
That's not even out there. I mean, that's we don't even have that rating on our podcast.
Well, exactly. That's
we're well into the 50s.
But trust in the federal government generally, they trust the federal government to generally sort of do the right thing. That's at a record high at 55%. That's sort of the still low, still pretty low.
Yeah, that's pretty low, isn't it? Yeah, it's not impressive, is it? Yeah.
We can limbo under that by walking upright as a 6 foot tall person.
Yeah. That says that it's topping the previous record of 48% in 2009. So
exactly.
There you go.
The measure had averaged just 32% in the past 13 years. So yeah,
I wonder, just as an interesting point, right? I wonder if part of this does have to do with US politics, in the sense that if anyone's like me, they're looking at our politicians and going, gosh, they could do with a bit of a scrub up, but they're really not that bad. I mean, no one's calling for, an overhaul of they're not saying that there's electoral fraud all over the place and that this is that there's illegitimate presidents and that there's, someone's winning the election through illegitimate means and all this sort of stuff. I mean, we get a few crackers in there every now and again, but gosh, it's gotta be like, oh, okay, we thought it was bad, but it's couldn't be a lot worse than what it is.
Yeah. Look, I completely agree with you, and I think it could be higher, but we don't have Jacinda Ardern. I wonder what New Zealanders.
Yeah, I wonder what her ratings she's got. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Anyway,
but
okay.
It's one of these really interesting sort of. Social cohesion is always, one of those really interesting things because it suggests that socially we are cohering, we are all getting along together, which I think is a little bit of an illusion. This is specifically targeted at how favourable people are looking at the federal government. It's good to know that it is very high compared with previously. I would suggest if you'd taken it earlier on in the year, i.e. January, it probably wouldn't have been so high, i.e. straight after the bushfires. But this is, it's interesting times. Very interesting times.
All right, and on our way back.
Oh, sorry.
Jake.
I need to make a subsequent point. Sorry, Greg. It is
literally why we have a podcast.
It's the government's response to the pandemic, right? And how did the federal government respond to the pandemic? They listened to experts. They got out of the way of themselves. Essentially said, we shouldn't be the ones managing this crisis because it's a science-based crisis, medical-based crisis. We need to get out of the way. So I'm going to juxtapose that with how they are currently dealing with climate change, and give you a bit of a segue there into the comment that we received, the message we received. But this will be interesting because the Australia saw the impact of climate change on bushfires, and they've seen that our largest customers, i.e. China and others, China and India and Japan and all of Europe, all of the EU, they have all pledged for 2050 net zero carbon emissions, which means they aren't going to be burning the coal that they buy from us for too much longer. And there's going to be massive investment on renewables, in the coming decades. So is it the time to do the right thing now? Who knows? No. I definitely agree with you, Greg.
Well, we are doing the right thing. Yeah, look, I know there's a bit of a push at the moment for us to buy Australian wines, right? Because to try and I suppose counteract China's ban on wine. Maybe we could buy our own coal.
Maybe
if we all just have a little bit of a stash of coal. Maybe getting coal for Christmas will become the good thing to do.
Yeah, the good thing. So that's actually it's an Italian tradition. Bubafina is the Italian equivalent to
just making it up.
Is the Italian equivalent to Santa. And naughty children, Greg, get coal.
Oh yeah, I know that's what I'm saying. But maybe we turn it into the good thing to do. Like instead of naughty children getting coal.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just imagine.
Everyone just gets coal.
Oh, check out this coal that I got. I can do so many things with it. I can paint the white wall.
Get it off the carpet.
I can inhale it and yeah.
How good is it?
Yeah, I totally agree.
All right. Okay, Mr. Frydenberg released his mid-year budget. I'm powering through. Mr. Frydenberg released his mid-year budget update this week, revealing the record budget deficit will come in at below 200 billion rather than the 214 billion forecast in October. Gosh, if we tally this up, with the was that other bungle that they did, the $60 billion bungle or whatever?
Yeah.
Got a bonus $74 billion. Yeah.
Exactly. And look, say what you will about that.
PlayStation 5.
Exactly. Or an Xbox Series X.
Yeah.
That bungle, say what you will about it, but it was based off the best modelling at the time, and it was based off worst case scenario, and thankfully we didn't get there. But yes, Josh Frydenberg, the Federal Treasurer, has said that things are looking, they're looking golden for our future. There are flecks of black and sort of smoky dark colours in that golden colour. But broadly speaking, it's pretty good. They're saying he's saying that unemployment is likely to achieve under 6%. A relatively reasonable percentage. I think it was about 5.5 odd percent.
Right.
In 2024, so we've got a long way to go there. But interestingly enough, the measures like JobKeeper and the bonuses to JobSeeker, etc., and some of the interventions that the federal government made in terms of the immediate tax write-off on purchases, etc., they meant, Greg, that we had fewer bankruptcies this financial year than you would normally expect in a normal year. So that
doesn't make any sense.
It's things like JobKeeper. So JobKeeper meant that you were able to keep on your staff, you were able to pay your staff, and you were able to keep up with your obligations.
Yeah, right.
And yet you didn't, you were able to keep trading even though you were potentially insolvent. And they also had that.
The zombie.
The zombie
companies.
Businesses, that's right.
Zombie businesses.
And it did highlight a lot. But you're also able to trade insolvent for longer than was normally feasible. Yeah, so pretty incredible little statistic. But it sounds like we're on our way back.
Excellent. On our way back from financial recovery, which is fantastic.
I should say that does come with a remarkable amount of debt. We are edging towards $1 trillion of debt, probably in the next couple of years. And we all knew this going into the coronavirus. We all knew that any major, massive economic support program, social support program, was going to come with a long-term debt. Thankfully, interest rates are at double donuts and very close. So for the federal government,
are we just calling zeros donuts now?
Why not? Look,
is that
who doesn't love a donut? Who doesn't love a donut?
Fair enough. Yes, double donuts. Yes. All right, Jake. It's time to run into the waves.
Yes.
At full pelt.
Time for a bit of body surfing.
That's right. Time for a bit of body surfing into the shallow wade, where we take a deeper dive into the world of politics and news. Now, Scott Morrison unveiled his new look front bench, but the shake-up has included a contentious promotion. I think I know where this is going, Jake. So he's had a bit of a reshuffle. Why did he have a reshuffle now? Why now?
Well, strategically, there's probably a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's the end of the sitting year, so it's a great time to let people spend a bit of time with their families before they embark on what is going to be a pretty huge year of 2021 in terms of the things that the government has to do in order to keep Australia chugging along.
Yeah.
And that's to say nothing of the potential structural changes that might need to occur in Australia's economy and policy, etc. So it gives them a little bit of a break. It also gives them a little bit of time to move into and understand their ministry before Parliament first sits. Because, of course, as a minister, you have an entire department underneath you, which is, hundreds, potentially thousands, potentially tens or hundreds of thousands of public servants. And so you need to know what's going on across that ministry. And in order to do that, you need time. And so it's that. The other side of the strategy is, hey, we are possibly going into a time where the government is going to have to tighten all of Australia's belts because of the interventions that occurred over the coronavirus period and bushfire period, etc. So, there is a very good chance that the government is going to want to put that off until after an election so that they can be all great, golden, rosy stuff up to the time of the election, say, hey, keep us going, we're doing well, just elect us back in, we'll just pick up where we were, where we left off from, we were doing so great, you remember us, we're the guys that got you through the coronavirus. And then a little bit of the way through the, as soon as they essentially resume their job, expect cuts galore. That's probably the way. So strategically, it's probably a really great time. It's setting them up for this year. Many commentators have remarked that there is a really good chance that we are going to see a federal election towards the end of this year. So that means that you've got your ministers. They've got a chance to solidify themselves in the hearts and the minds of the Australian public.
Yeah.
As competent and awesome human beings who also run ministries.
Yeah.
And so that I would say is the reason why they've done it.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
I'm sorry that was a 6-minute answer.
That's fine. I'm used to it. I usually, if I'm editing the podcast, I usually just get the last sentence, and then it sums it up quite nicely. It's quite good. So thanks for doing that. But yes, okay. So who are the key players? So a reshuffle basically involves an MP moving to another thing. Were there any demotions?
Look, there were a number of demotions, but they probably not actually referred to as actual demotion. So the most notable one is Richard Colbeck, who was the Minister for Aged Care,
right,
and older people. He has lost aged care portfolio. That's gone to the Health Minister, Greg Hunt.
Right.
Richard
so I've
Colbeck,
seen Greg Hunt on the news now. Is he hasn't changed yet?
Well, I think he has taken... Well, actually, no, he hasn't taken it on yet. So he's been given this, but they haven't gone to the Governor-General and formally accepted their...
Right, okay.
Their ministry.
Okay.
That normally happens in the new year from memory. So Richard Colbeck will retain aged care services and support, but the actual aged care portfolio and indeed the government's response to the Royal Commission into aged care will be given over to Greg Hunt. An interesting one. I've got an interesting one for you. Well, actually, I've got two interesting ones for you. I'll start with the slightly less interesting one. David Coleman was very interesting. He was the immigration minister, and for 6 months he wasn't actually present at all.
Right.
It probably makes a little bit of sense that they just retained, let Richard Colbeck take, Coleman, David Coleman, to let him keep it because, of course, we didn't have a huge amount of immigration happening over the coronavirus period.
Yeah.
But he disappeared. It seems that there was legitimate reasons for him to essentially take some time away. And he's living currently outside of his electorate. But he was not present in question time. He wasn't present in Parliament at all. Labor as well gave him a pass. That was fine.
Right.
But yeah, look, it was very interesting. It looks like he is going to be assisting the minister. He's going to become the assistant minister to the Prime Minister for mental health and suicide prevention. Now, the interesting one, really interesting one. A little bit of tidbit of knowledge. Scott Morrison actually promoted a guy who fired him several years ago.
There you go.
So it's quite
such is the world of politics, Jake.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Do you want to have a guess at which minister got promoted?
After firing Scott Morrison? What did he fire him for?
Morrison. Well, if I were to say that, I would...
Well, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking for clues, Jake.
Well, okay, I'll give you clues.
This is why I don't play board games.
This person who was promoted was previously the chief of staff of the then tourism minister. So sacked Morrison when Morrison was the head of Tourism Australia.
For the where the bloody hell are you thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Where the bloody hell are you thing?
I have no idea. Who is it?
It's the former education minister, whatever his name is. You know him? I forgot his name and now I can't find it.
Oh dear. Dan Tehan?
That's it, Dan Tehan. Dan Tehan has been promoted into the trade minister.
Okay. So he's now trade minister, right? So okay, so Dan Tehan fired Scott Morrison when Dan was head of Tourism Australia.
Chief of staff under the tourism minister.
Right. So as tourism minister, he fired Scott Morrison from his position of Tourism Australia.
Correct. And now Scott Morrison is in the position to promote
him. Well, best person for the job and all that.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay. So are there any other surprises in there? What about, I've read about Alan Tudge.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure that was so surprising. His affair, or alleged, no, actually he did admit to it,
Yeah.
but his affair with a female staffer was on Four Corners, subject of a Four Corners expose last
Yeah.
year. He's been given the portfolio of Education and Youth Minister.
Right.
I should say also David Coleman, who we talked about, who was the immigration minister previously. He also used to have that youth services portfolio, which is now gone over to Alan Tudge. Yeah.
Righto. So Alan Hawke will become the new immigration minister. Michael Sukkar will also take on the title of Minister of Housing, Homelessness, Social and Security Housing. Zed Cesar? How do you say that one? Zed Sejla will become the Minister for International Development in the Pacific.
Yeah.
It's a big job.
It is. And
so vaccines, coronavirus, climate change.
Yep. Aid.
Jonathan. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, look, if it's anything like Fiji has just been wiped out by that enormous storm. That's right.
Zagi, I think it is. Yeah, but I suppose there are a few others. The former ADF personnel, Andrew Hastie, he'll enter the executive as the Assistant Minister for Defence.
Right.
Alongside Amanda Stoker, who will become the Assistant Minister to the Attorney General.
Okay. Ben Morton will continue in his role as Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister and Cabinet, and will add responsibility. I wonder if he's got an assistant. Do you think he would have an assistant? So her title, his or her title, would be Assistant to the Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister and Cabinet.
Well, they'll all have a chief of staff and they'll all have a retinue. Whether they have an assistant minister is normally dependent on the size of the ministry and the importance of the ministry.
Okay, and we'll add responsibilities as Assistant Minister Electoral Matters. Right. So his assistant would be the assistant to the Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister and Cabinet and Assistant Minister Electoral Matters.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to redo the stationery. The Cabinet will remain at 22 ministers despite the departure of Senator Cormann, who is now angling to lead the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development. That's the chopper story. No changes were made to the Nationals in the ministry, which Mr Morrison said maintained its record representation of women in the Cabinet.
Of 3.
Doesn't matter. It's a record.
Yeah.
Jake, I can go to New Zealand now without any problem whatsoever.
Congratulations. You may need to wait, actually. It's looking like the Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern did notify during the press conference this year, last week I think it was.
Sometime this year.
Indeed.
Narrow it down. We'll narrow it down. Give you the facts.
Exactly. So, yes, a travel bubble with Australia can be expected in the first quarter of 2021, pending, of course, confirmation from the Australian Cabinet that no significant change in circumstances in either country are likely
we're
to happen.
not doing too well.
Well, just, it's just a little bit comical that, of course, the next day we have the emergence of the Sydney cluster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the good thing about that, at the time of going to air, at the moment, the cases have dropped down to 15 today, which is good. Like, so not the total amount of cases. I think the total amount of cases is like 80, but the number of new cases is 15, which is less than yesterday. So that's very good.
It is. Okay.
I know. I understand it's not a trend, Jake. I understand it's not a trend. But at least
one of those things.
I'd rather it go down than up.
I completely agree with you. It's just you can't trust Sunday. You can't trust Sunday statistics.
Well, any of them?
No, essentially, the trend that has occurred over the existence of the coronavirus.
Yeah, because people don't get tested on a
Sundays.
So they want to have
work
work
off. Been a massive dip.
Yeah, they want to have work off, so they wait till Monday to get tested.
The fact is, you are not allowed to go to work. You're not allowed to leave your house. Essentially, you are to go to the testing centre and then go straight home.
So you wait till Monday. So you have the day
that's
off.
The thing.
Yeah.
Because the test turnaround
Smart.
is so short now. if you do it on a Sunday, it means that you likely will have your result by starting time on Monday. You'll be able to go to work.
Okay, so this is all about the fact that officials have been working on preparations for that, acknowledging that one of the criteria is 28 days free of community transmission. Isn't Melbourne up to some crazy amount of days?
Yeah, they're up to like 45, 46, something like that.
So it's crazy, like the high 40s or something. Yeah, it's insane.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And, all right, cool. So hopefully this works. A date on the Trans-Tasman quarantine-free travel bubble will be announced in the new year. Australian Health Minister Greg Hunt said the federal government welcomed New Zealand's announcement, describing it as the second half of the equation.
Yeah. What is the first half, Greg? Us going there?
Us going there and then them coming here?
Look, we have some state-based arrangements where New Zealanders are allowed to come to some states in Australia, and without quarantining. The fact is they've had no community transmission in New Zealand for a significant amount of time, and so this will be quite an appropriate, quite a cool thing to do.
Yeah, and they've also bought, Jacinda's so nice, she bought all of the Pacific Islands some vaccine as well.
That's it, yeah, which is something that Australia should absolutely be doing as well.
But, we've got a minister for Pacific nations now.
Indeed, yes. What we have done, of course, is we have invested in the international vaccine. I can't recall the name of the program, but essentially it enables smaller nations, less wealthy nations to have the vaccine for an appropriate price. Good.
All right. Now this is so my question to you, Jake, is about this in principle stuff. So this is an in principle agreement, and we also saw that with the trade situation in Japan, where Scott Morrison flew over there, and they came up with an in principle agreement. So is an in principle agreement just for show? Like, is it just a political, what do you call it? Cabaret, Jake?
I love that. A political cabaret. So it's song and dance. Yeah. Look, I think some of them are. Some of them definitely are. An in principle agreement suggests that. In some cases that we're just doing it because some people said it was popular, so we decided to do it. We're putting some signatures on a piece of paper. It's non-binding, etc. We're probably going to weasel out of it later on. That's you could probably suggest that is the case in some. I think in most cases though, it shows intent. It shows that unless the situation changes, which it could. We've just seen the emergence in New South Wales of coronavirus community transmission. Nice big cluster there in the Northern Beaches. If things do change, then if situation changes, then so can the policy. So in principle, we're all good and we're all working towards this, but we probably need to get a little bit further down the thing as well.
All right, good. Thank you for that clarification, Jake. Now,
I feel like it added value.
Something that $2. Something that isn't. Doesn't add value.
The ombudsman.
Something that it wasn't in principle, and something that was a very strong message to send, was that Melbourne's public housing tower lockdown breached human rights. Now, this comes on the back of Victorian Human Rights Ombudsman Deborah Glass finding that the Victorian government's last-minute decision to place 9 public housing towers into an immediate hard lockdown violated the human rights of about 3,000 tenants.
This was we discussed this at the time. It was really harrowing. This was at the very beginning of the COVID lockdowns. They were the first. Essentially, these were the first lockdowns that occurred in Melbourne under their second wave. These the public housing towers, which Melbourne has a number of them. Victoria has a number of them. They refer to them as vertical cruise ships in their essentially as their ability to spread the coronavirus through their there's plenty of occasions of very tightly packed people in those apartments. As well as they regularly congregate together. There's many cultural microcosms in there, so people will congregate together. They'll eat, food together. They'll eat meals together, etc. They'll share a coffee in the morning, etc. So the the ability to propagate coronavirus in those towers was significant and a significant risk to both the people within those towers and to the broader Victorian public. And the Victorian government at the time made the decision to lock it down with extraordinarily minimal notice. In fact, there was no notice. There was no press conference. It was just done.
It was so full on, wasn't it? Because I remember that. And it really brought out the worst in a lot of people too. It really brought out this. I suppose
us and them mentality.
Yeah, us and them mentality. That's right. It was very brutal to watch.
It was, of course, the case of Pauline Hanson, who suggested that those people living in the public housing towers were just drug-addicted alcoholics, with no jobs, etc. Which, it was so rude. And of course, almost immediately after that, I think Pauline Hanson tried to lobby the Australia Post in order to get the thousands of
that's right, the stubby coolers. That's right. How funny is that?
Delivered,
so weird.
As an apology.
Yeah. You wouldn't expect anything
alcoholics, but they're not alcoholics. But so we'll deliver them. It's just an optics thing. It's so weird.
Yeah. So I tried to look up the actual. What are the details of this? What were they actually against? And I came up with that it was the isolation, detention, and testing of those people in the towers that breached the human rights. And when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense. Isolation without any sort of warning. Detention in that you're not allowed out without any warning whatsoever. And then testing them against their will, possibly as well. I don't know. It sounds that way. And especially if they can't understand English and all this. The majority of those people dealing with them would have been English speakers. So not understanding what was happening, being afraid, being scared. I mean, these are all reasons that you flee your home country to come to Australia, right? So to be feeling that way here is atrocious. And I suppose, I know that the state government has tried to defend what they did by saying that it was based on the advice of the experts at the time. But that's very scientific. It's a cold approach, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think I would struggle to come up with an alternative option in how to approach it. I think a lot of the criticism was really around A, notification, B, providing information, and C, ensuring that all of the people within those towers had enough food, enough amenities, enough access to amenities. And all of that during firstly at the beginning of the lockdown, but then also for the rest of the lockdown. There's also other things around, because of the lack of notification, etc. The people had jobs that they had to go to. There's a very good chance that those jobs were insecure work. So probably some of them may have lost their jobs. It was just such a harrowing thing as an observer to see people locked up. There was, of course, we also discussed months ago the fact that there were posters up on the walls that were
mistranslated.
They were just gibberish. So providing no real information. So if the only way for you to provide information is written information that is gibberish to the person trying to absorb that information, then somebody has not done their job.
No.
It was awful.
Really
glad
atrocious.
that this determination has been made by the Human Rights Ombudsman for one major reason. It can't happen again. Got to reevaluate these things. If you got to lock down a public housing tower, then you got to figure out how to do it in a way that is humane.
Yeah.
So.
Even if that's what the advice from the scientists is to lock it down, well then okay, you have to inject a bit of humanity in there as well.
And that's that point. When you do get all of the smartest people into a room, you got to make sure that some of those smart people are, ethicists. Some of those people are, sociologists and counsellors or whatever the appropriate roles are to be advising on how you approach 3,000 people who are in a very, very tight-knit area, very, logistically tight area. How do you get information to every single one of those people, as well as food, as well as ensuring that they have access to all of those things that we require as human beings?
Absolutely. All right. Speaking of things, Jake, that we need, as human beings, wine, beef,
Yep.
barley.
Yep.
What do
Coal.
coal? What do they all have in common?
Lobsters. What do they all have in common? They're currently either sitting on a port
Yeah.
in China, having been exported from Australia, and they're currently sitting on a port waiting to be ignored by the Chinese officials on the other side. We're talking about trade.
We are talking about trade,
with
and,
China.
and to be clear, we've spoken about this a few times on the show, and I think we both feel the same, which is that this is just, it's a real act against humanity. It is such a inhumane way for China to be behaving, and we're not afraid to say that. So but we are going to stick with a few. We're going to stick with a few facts here, but we just want to be very clear that we do understand that this impacts the lives and livelihoods of Australians, and that this is just atrocious behaviour from a bully of a country. And I can't believe it's happening to us here. But Jake, tell us what are our next steps? What is it that we're doing to move forward to make sure the bully pays the price for their behaviours?
Well, we are approaching the World Trade Organization for arbitration, particularly against the major barley tariffs that were imposed in May this year. That 80.5%, which is massive, worth about $600 million a year to Australian farmers. They were slapped with that massive tariff.
Yep.
And it was all on allegations that Australia had been dumping goods in another country, in China. And dumping essentially is where you sell your goods, your stuff, for less than what would normally be acceptable on the open market or in the original country's market.
Yeah.
So, essentially not true.
No.
We have an enormous amount of evidence that it's not true. There was an investigation that occurred in, I think it was 20. It looks like I didn't get the information. I didn't put the information there, but I believe it was 2018. It might have been a little bit earlier that China commenced an investigation into this alleged dumping of barley into China from Australia. And this barley tariff will last for 5 years unless Chinese investigators decide to end it, or perhaps decide to review it and extend it.
Right.
So essentially, Australia's decided to take it to the World Trade Organization. And that's not going to necessarily fix it, and it's not necessarily going to be quick either.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Like, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because we are not the type of country who will sidestep these sorts of procedures in this particular circumstance. We're not going to sidestep these procedures, so we come off second best because we're not, malicious bullies.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right, and that's not to say that China's necessarily in the wrong for saying we're not going to do it. China's not necessarily in the wrong for saying, Australia, we're just not going to accept your barley, or moreover, we're not going to, accept you dumping in our country. It's creating economic havoc. Therefore, we're going to, put massive tariffs on it. They did sidestep the World Trade Organization process, but China might say as perhaps as devil's advocate, that we don't trust the World Trade Organization to find objectively that that the evidence suggests that they were dumping. So anyway, the suggestion here is that the standard timetable would ideally move disputes through consultation and potentially adjudication within a year. It really actually, in real terms, takes several years.
Yeah, right.
Particularly if there are appeals or there's compliance actions. But look, it's not going to be quick. There are no punitive measures, so China's not going to be fined.
No.
And at the end of it, China might in fact decide that they don't want to trade with us anymore anyway.
Yeah.
So they might remove, World Trade Organization might say, look, your tariff of 80.5% is invalid.
I say, okay, we'll get stuffed.
Remove it, but we don't actually want Australian barley anymore. Now, look, this is really interesting because China's actually not necessarily in the barley side, but they've seriously shot themselves in the foot here. I wonder whether they're doing something strategic. But they've because of the bans on Australian coal they imposed very recently. They have been forcing some provinces of China to not use electricity. So their coal-fired power plants, they've told their populace, do not turn on your heating unless it goes -3 degrees. Do not use your elevators. You must, walk the 20 floors up to your apartment. It's really interesting. I perhaps understand why they're doing it. They're suggesting, but that's not going to be a quick thing.
That's the cold face of it, isn't it? I mean, that's just such a malicious thing to do, to put your own people in a situation where you're asking them to do something that's against human rights, just to save face with a country who's just wants to know where coronavirus is coming from. They just are so relentless, they're so sadistically patient, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, the reality is that the last 200 years have been, and many commentators have made this observation, the last 200 years of Chinese, I suppose, economic subservience is a bit of an aberration. It's just it does not reflect on the history of China, which China has been the world leader for millennia.
Yeah.
And the last 200 years, starting with the trading with British and the Americans, it ended in the Opium Wars. It opened in seceding of Hong Kong, or handing over Hong Kong to the British.
Yeah.
And they've referred to this. They have a term for it. I'm going to butcher it, but it's something to the order of the Great Shame. And essentially, it is an aberration, and they are invariably they are on their way back, strongly and fiercely, and they are an unapologetically nationalistic country. They will look after their own before they think of anyone else. But
that's the thing, like they don't, right? Because they worry about their reputation so much. It's a bit like I suppose that on a basic level, it's a bit like shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
On a more complicated level, it's a bit like exactly what happened with Donald Trump over in the US, in the sense that his crusade to prove the pandemic wrong, or to prove lockdowns wrong, or to prove voter fraud has been detrimental to him. They're so hell-bent on promoting their cause that it's actually detrimental to themselves, and that's how I feel like they're eating themselves. They're going, well, actually our reputation and bullying Australia is so much more important than the health and well-being of our own citizens. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Look, I agree with you on the face of it. The reality is, though, they are the strongest nation in the world and will continue to get stronger. And if that means, that they have to, at this stage, it's that old saying, to cut the nose off to spite the face. They're doing something bad in order to do something even worse. Look, they are invariably doing something right now which impacts maybe a couple of 100 million or maybe tens of millions of people out of 1.34 billion. And at the same time, they are strategically punishing a previous economic partner who caused them to lose face. So I understand, strategically what they're doing. It's awful. Don't get me wrong. It's so bad. And we are at the pointy end of it because we had some really uppity, really silly backbencher Liberal ministers who decided that they would jump on the Trump bandwagon and ally us with the worst parts of Trumpism, and essentially bully China into that coronavirus inquiry that didn't even end up anywhere near what those backbencher ministers wanted.
Yeah.
So
see, and
anyway.
that's the thing, right? And China is so good at what they do, because you watched it unfold with the tweet of the painting or whatever it was. Some people called it a manipulated photograph, but my understanding is that it was actually a painting or an art piece of the Australian soldier with the child at knife point.
Yeah.
And what you saw was people saying, "Oh, but they have a point. Like Australian soldiers did do that. Like Australian soldiers were, maliciously killing people," and so they are so good at selling the message that makes you question whether or not you should agree with them a little bit. And it's just poetically malicious, right? Like, because all of a sudden you have to have a conversation and say, well, weren't they right? Like, aren't China right to point that out? Aren't China right to point out the fact that the Australian soldiers were doing this horrific thing? Like, and you sort of have to almost agree with them. So then you start to, all you need is that little seed planted about, oh, maybe China aren't half as bad as what we think, and they're sort of already winning, right? And you can imagine how many people go down a further path than that and start saying, well, actually, I agree with the the CCP all of a sudden, right? Like it's just is that what it is, the CCP?
Yeah, Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah. So it's like, to me, it's like, I don't even want to entertain the discussion that they might be doing the right thing in the slightest. Like, I'm not willing to have them have that part of my mind.
Yeah, well, this. I mean, you're right on so many levels there. The fact is, and we discussed it at the time when that tweet, the painting, or whatever it was, came out, in saying it is absolutely the right of any country to point out that Australia has done something wrong here, and they have.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Yeah,
it is not right, however, to go about it in a way that is so propagandist.
Yeah,
that attempts to say, how dare you point out the failings in China when you have all of this stuff in your own backyard?
They're very good.
When we questioned the Chinese officials, they said, you should be speaking, Australia, how dare you question, this tweet that was sent out. You should be speaking to the Afghani public, you should be speaking to the Afghani officials, and you should be seeking reparations. We'd already done that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just atrocious
propaganda by master propagandists.
Yeah, exactly, and it's weird to be a part of that. It's weird to sort of have your own brain affected by it, if you. Jake, all this talk about China has made me quite stressed, and when I'm stressed, I like to vape.
What a second.
I like to vape. I'm vaping right now, and it's soothing. It's soothing to the soul. I've never vaped. I haven't smoked since high school. Yeah. I don't know about vaping too much, but tell me what's happening here. So we've got Liberal Senator Sarah Henderson has combined with Labor and Centre Alliance to shut down an attempt by two coalition rebels to upturn, like the rebels makes it sound like Star Wars, to upturn the government's prescription-only policy on e-cigarettes. So what's the go? Because I can go and get a vaping machine now, can't I? Like, they're not banned in Australia yet, are they?
So you can buy a vaping machine.
I just can't get the vape.
You cannot get nicotine. You cannot get the nicotine stuff without.
Yes, I can. Brad can get
it. You can't get it without a prescription, essentially. And actually, I don't even know whether you can get it with a prescription. Anyway.
So this is if I'm like full. I'm going through like full withdrawals, and I need something. My doctor might give me nicotine in an e-cigarette.
Now, some countries have enabled the nicotine liquid or the e-cigarette nicotine additive liquid, whatever it happens to be, to source it.
We're experts, yeah.
Well, so exactly. Some other countries have enabled or have legalised that, and as a consequence, people can or have been rather ordering it from other countries and importing it into Australia.
So a little bit of deregulation.
Yeah. Well, so essentially, what there's a couple of these people in the backbench of the Liberal Party, Federal Liberal Party, for example, Holly Hughes and Matt Canavan, who have been asking to allow vaping devices and fluid to be imported for personal use legally. But this group of woke individuals, people who prefer to have, I won't say woke because that's a bit of a pejorative thing, but who have essentially sided with the evidence, for which there is very little for supporting e-cigarette usage, particularly on that premise of using it for quitting. What has been found, and that's not to discount anecdotal, people's own stories, their anecdotes. There are plenty of people who I've spoken to previously who have said, I used, nicotine vape and it helped me to quit smoking. That's great. But the science tells us, so while your case suggests that you've been able to quit smoking, there have been hundreds, if not thousands of others in peer-reviewed double-blind studies that have found that it doesn't help you to quit. In fact, if anything, people have been, I don't know what it's called, doubling up essentially.
That's exactly what it's called, doubling up.
They've gone from
smoke
one
twice as much
to both. Exactly.
Yeah,
they
right.
have. So look, it's not, and the big thing here is that we don't know a lot about smoking e-cigarettes. We don't know the long-term health effects.
No.
But we do know the long-term health effects
aren't going to be good.
Inhaling,
They're not going to be
things, inhaling particles, and we do know that they happen to degrade the lungs quite prolifically, and the mouth, and the throat, and the esophagus, etc. So many people have suggested that look, we probably shouldn't be legalizing a new thing that may have the potential to create super cancers into the future that we have absolutely no idea about, when we already have this perfectly great thing that causes cancer right now.
Exactly. And that the other thing is too, Jake, I mean, you're going to end up with more people smoking because vaping just looks so cool, doesn't it?
Well, the evidence suggests that it is
great.
A bit of a gate. I hate to use that term gateway thing, but essentially, because in most cases where people use it, it's absolutely not evidence-based that it is a gateway thing. In this case, the evidence suggests people who start off with vaping may very well end up smoking cigarettes.
I love this because in the article it calls them smoking combustible cigarettes.
Yeah, which
so we have to put a
cigarettes.
Yeah, that's right. They're just the normal cigarettes, you twit.
Cigarettes and e-cigarettes.
No, what are you doing? I'm going to go outside and have a combustible cigarette.
Yes. What are you using to combust that combustible cigarette? Yeah, it's funny.
Dear me.
So it's been the idea of having the removing the prescription only policy on e-cigarettes. That's been upheld. So the two rebels in the backbench of the Liberals,
the Rebel Alliance,
have not been able, Liberal Nationals, I should say, have not been able to bring forward their policy change.
Well, that's oh well, that's not good. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Damn.
Oh, damn. Okay. All right. Now, Jake, there was another story that you wanted to do. Did you want to do that story?
Look, did you want to talk about the person that wrote in?
I do. I'll bring up their email.
Let's talk about them because we can do a little bit of a extra little bit on that.
Nicely.
It does.
Okay. Now, my apologies if I get the name wrong. Mohsen Saki sent us an email during the week. Said, I'm a listener to your podcast, and first I would like to say thank you for the content you provide and the jokes.
You're welcome.
No problem. I don't get all of them, though I suppose it's language barriers. No, Mohsen, it's not the language barriers.
They're just bad jokes.
It's the delivery. However, I recently pulled some numbers together and built an interactive dashboard which makes it easier for one to wrap their head around the mining and resources industry's ups and downs in Australia during the last 3 decades, 1990 to 2020. Considering the fact that you are a little obsessed with climate change and fossil fuels, winky face, I thought you might like it. I thought you might find it interesting. He's written about it on LinkedIn, and we can jump directly into the dashboard by clicking on one of the links. I wrote back and I said, Mo, this is fantastic. Like, I've spent half an hour on this website. I've learnt more in the first half an hour on this website than I have in reading 1,000,001 articles. Can we talk about it on the show? He said, absolutely. I said, can we include some links for the website in the description for the podcast? And he said, absolutely. So I've done that. I've included some of those links to Mohsen's interactive dashboard about mining in Australia over the last 3 decades, and it's really beautiful to look at. It's very, very simple to use. I also said, can I send you a mug and sticker? And he said, stay away from me. You're sending me way too many emails. And I said, absolutely, but can I send you a mug and sticker? And he said, yes. If it's going to shut you up, you can send me a mug and sticker. So I'm going to do that over the next few days. I don't know when it will get to you now that Australia Post won't deliver on Saturdays anymore, but we certainly have it. Did you have a chance to check it out at all, Jake? Did you have a look at it?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting resource, and the sort of thing that as many people should be fact checking. Obviously, it's important to fact check these things and ensure that they're peer reviewed. But I think I'm someone who uses Power BI in my day job.
Yeah, I have no idea what it is.
To build this resource, and it's Microsoft. It's a bit of light AI, it's a bit of machine learning, bit of
okay.
It's really
Should
cool.
I be scared?
I've
downloaded this on my computer.
It's really useful. Dashboarding is the best thing ever. It helps to bring together disparate pieces of information in a way that you can, start using.
Okay.
Turn data into information.
It is beautiful. You just click on a year, you can have a look at it. It's got aluminium, coal, copper, diamonds, gold, iron ore, lead, nickel, silver, tin. You can see it going up and down throughout the years. Different states, different territories. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful little piece of data that you've shared with us. So thank you so much, Mohsen. And just to top this off, Jake, the cherry on the top, the how would you say, the gold nugget, the what,
as the French would say, a certain je ne sais quoi.
Jake, now it's oftentimes that I will spring a story on you, but you're going to spring a little story on me about mining.
Well, I've got two very, very short headlines. The first one is Josh Frydenberg, the treasurer, has launched an inquiry into the banks not lending money to essentially mining things, mining
projects,
excursion mining projects, etc.
Yeah, that's right.
And the banks have essentially they've been doing it for a little while. Major superannuation companies have been doing that for a little while as well. And the reason behind that is essentially these are long-term investments.
Yes.
And if coal doesn't have a long-term future, because Australia's major international customers, the people who buy our coal and our gas, if they don't have, and they have declared that they don't have a long-term future in the purchasing of that, then it makes a lot of sense that those banks would be very, very wary of lending to projects that are unlikely to provide the returns that are suggested on the thing, because essentially those customers won't be buying the stuff.
So what does he want to see out of this then? Like, I mean, aren't they allowed to just not invest in whatever they don't want to invest in?
Banks, as with, look, my day job is risk management. So
mine too. I'm a school teacher.
I'm a project manager, and part
carry
of that,
the scissors properly. You're doing it since kindergarten. What are you trying to kill us all?
You're in the applied and practical version. I'm in the theoretical version. I risk manage as a job. My job is to understand, to identify risks, to identify issues, and escalate them, address them, mitigate them, etc. Put in place treatments, etc. So after a bit of time, you get reasonably good at identifying those things because it becomes part of pattern recognition. And banks are incredibly good at risk management. They always have been, because it's money. It's their money. It's their shareholders' money. It's their stakeholders' money. It's their customers' money.
That's right.
And as a consequence, they generally do not go into a bad investment if there is a chance that that investment will not pay off.
But what does Josh want to see out of this?
He wants to see those companies investing in coal projects, in coal seam gas.
But aren't they just allowed not to?
Projects.
Why do they need an inquiry?
this is the thing. It's the bank's own money. But I suppose there is an awful lot of concessions that banks do get as part of big lending institutions. So look, there's maybe a case there from the federal government perspective of, hey, we're in a coronavirus recovery thing. We do need big infrastructure projects, and you're holding back. But I think we have to understand. And we have to empathise with the positions of the banks, which is essentially, guys, we're not investing in these things because we ain't going to get the returns that you said. We're not going to get paid back. We have a certain interest rate on a certain amount of money, and these aren't small amounts of money. These are hundreds of millions of dollars. So it makes a lot of sense that they would question the long-term risk of these projects.
Well, maybe Josh Frydenberg needs to show them Mosen's Power BI.
Exactly. Well, it's not going to help them. It's not going to help them.
I don't know. Just show the charts that are going up. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, the other really small bit of news on the climate change front is that in the UK there was a climate summit. Scott Morrison, Prime Minister Scott Morrison, was to get a speaking slot at that thing. It's called the Climate Ambition Summit.
Oh yeah.
And he was denied that by none other than Boris Johnson.
Yeah, right.
Who has done very little for fixing climate change.
He didn't. What was his reasons? Is it purely just because he doesn't think we've got a lot to say on the matter, or? Well,
it's a climate ambition summit, and we're not ambitious.
So no, we have. We've met our targets and we've beaten them.
Yeah, but it's
surely
based on old agreements. It's based on old agreements. I mean,
right.
Yeah, look,
so he's calling our bluff.
He's saying, you need to get a new bluff.
Update your bluff.
Look, at least if you're going to be a conservative government and continue to bow to, you're going to continue to invest in non-renewable energy, then you at least need to create a better spin mechanism to market better. No, I'm being hyperbolic, but it's one of those things. Boris Johnson will be London is holding or is hosting the next major climate conference, and so it makes a bit of sense that he needs to create, if not show, his bona fides, and it just so happened that happened to that impacted on Australia's ambition to be seen to be ambitious on climate change.
A little ways to go on that. All right, Jake. All right, are you happy to leave all of that there, Jake?
Oh, so happy. Oh my God. It's very hot in here, Greg.
Is it? Yeah. You look like you're doing work.
But I gotta say, I'm sweating.
I love it. Meanwhile, it's nice and cool where I am. Very relaxed indeed. Now, Jake, when our listeners have finished going outside for their own vaping needs, what would you like them to do?
I'd love them if they could if they could go to patreon.com/The Pouch Podcast. Consider becoming a patron if they're not ready for that level of intimacy with The Pouch the Podcast. We would love it if they rate, reviewed, and subscribe, because if you rate and review, it helps other people to see our podcast when they're searching for other podcasts. So
absolutely.
Fantastic.
And Jake, let me talk you through some numbers just really quickly.
Great.
This is for the people who stick around. This is for the people who don't turn off, which according to our numbers is 4 of you. We'd have over 22,000 downloads this year, and then the year's not even done yet. There are over 22,000 downloads. I feel really, really proud about that. So really great. So congratulations to you, and congratulations to me, and thank you so much for all of those people who have downloaded our podcast, and thank you to those people who stick around. We really, really appreciate it. We're getting to the tail end of the year, but we're going to keep powering through. So I don't know what this will make it, like 27th or something, which kind of makes it. I think I can do the 27th day, the day after Boxing Day, but maybe we'll have to see.
I'm super keen, because
how those dates
what I'd love
work out.
to do is a bit of a recap.
Yeah.
Episode.
Yeah.
Let's
totally do it. Yeah. Totally, Jake. It's what the listeners want. Absolutely. And Jake and I've got some great plans for 2021 as well. Have a shave. Buy some new clothes. Big plans. But if you do want to share the love, you can do so by telling your friends, families, or foes to head to thepouchofthepodcast.com, where they can choose their favourite podcast player of choice. And if you would like a sticker or a mug, you want to play sticker or mug, you can send me an email at thepouchthepodcast@gmail.com, and I will promptly respond, and I will also promptly send you a mug.
You've got to make sure that you send us something on Power BI.
Yeah, I mean, look, gosh, that's one way to get yourself a free mug. Goodness me. Although the competition isn't too stiff, to be honest with you. All right, but thank you so much for sticking around. And yeah, we've still got one more episode to go for the year, so don't go getting too excited about this being our final episode or anything like that. Shout out to the boys from Politics Over Coffee who will be doing their final episode this week, if my measurements are correct. And so yeah, go over there, subscribe to them for their very last episode. Jake wrote a lovely little speech for them
on behalf of the listeners.
On behalf of the listeners, so very, very well done. Check it out, and Jake, enjoy the rest of your Monday evening.
You enjoy the rest of your Monday evening as well, Greg.
Now, listeners, I'm also not going to be able to. I'm also not going to be able to edit this podcast as much as I would usually, just due to illnesses in the house and being a single parent for the next couple of days. By proxy, I'm still happily married. I just am. Just to clarify that. So hold back on the emails, and I just don't have the time at the moment. But we pushed through. We got through on the Monday episode, and thank you very much to Jake for being patient with me on that one. And I'm going to go and get changed out of these stinky clothes, Jake. These stinky mowing clothes.
Meanwhile, I'm going to go and mow. I think.
Go and get stinky. All right. See you, my friend.
Thank you.
Bye.